Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the TalkTrack. As usual, I'm your moderator for the evening. I don't like to say host. Host is too heavy because I barely talk. Hosts are supposed to talk. I barely talk in these things. I bring a topic, you guys argue. So I'm your host for the evening. My name is Roy, aka Kamada, aka Alchemist, aka Muzamiru, aka Muzamzu, aka Kamada. I already said Kamada. Chimpy June, I'm tall. I am average height.
Really?
I am average height. Guys, I just started. These digs are supposed to come in like midway the thing. I just started. I'm not even a minute in. I've even forgotten where I was going with this introduction. We are Plot 8B Gabula Road, the Barrow House. Yes. The TalkTrack is an independent production of the Kara Junkies. It's produced, edited, and sound mixed by Maurice, who also has very many names that we shall not pronounce today on account of me already being insulted. Guys, I'm average height. I just want to restate that. And they say Chimpy Junior, I'm average height. For those who see me on the screen and I look short, it's because this counter is tall. Just say, we do not own any of the rights to the music you're going to be hearing in the background. And all the ideas presented on the TalkTrack are not dictated by myself or any one of the Kara Junkies. These are all independent thoughts presented by the participants of the TalkTrack. So check us out on our socials, especially YouTube at TalkTrack UG. For any episodes that you might miss, that's where you'll find them. And if you just want to look at some beautiful and handsome faces, we are all there. The single people know themselves. I just leave that there. A lot has happened, I think, in the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And I've been struggling with what I was going to present as our topic for discussion for today. Because I've been engaged in a lot of interesting conversations over the last 2 weeks. But globally speaking, both nationally and globally, even geopolitically speaking, a lot has been happening. For those that have been watching the news or following the news, we all know that the ceasefire in Gaza took place, so people are going back to their homes, which is a good thing. We have the issues in Goma, and that is actually going to give us the basis for our conversation today. 2 things drove me to what we're going to discuss today. The first one, a prominent figure was recently a prominent Ugandan figure who we shall not name, again for trademark purposes. A prominent Ugandan figure was recently accused of an act that you would not wish on anyone's mother, sister, or daughter. Right? And, usually when articles like that come out, the most interesting bits are not the articles, especially when it's on social media. The most interesting bits are the comments. For anyone that ever reads something controversial, once you've read the article, always read the comments, because the comments really give you an insight into what people are thinking and what the status quo in the country or wherever you are is at that particular moment. Right? And then recently, with what has been happening in the DRC, in the eastern town of Goma, you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there were male prisoners who broke into a female prison and then sexually assaulted and then set fire to that prison. So 165 female prisoners were sexually assaulted, and then after the act, the prison was set on fire by the perpetrators. And again, going into the comment sections, because especially for something that heinous, you'd think people are going to say, oh, shout out to the sending love, sending peace, stuff like that. But immediately the first 2 comments were, oh, the political situation in Congo is terrible at the moment, and we need to get people to start paying attention to this. Those were like the first 2 comments. And then after that, the remainder of the comments, my God, it became a gender war, right? Because, okay, that's men doing what men do again, and this and this and this and this, which is the same thing that happened when that prominent Ugandan figure was accused of what he was accused of then the comment section turned into a gender war thing, right? But remember, these are broader issues that are affecting a large group of people and broader issues that we need to pay attention to. But then we find ourselves 95% of the time focusing on that one tiny bit. We always come down to that aspect of gender. Men are this and women are this. So today the conversation is just going to be open. I'm not even going to have a guiding question or anything. And again, this is my opinion, and feel free to disagree with me if you want to. But I do feel where we are at the moment, we have a lot more to worry about than who the gender of the person that is perpetrating whatever is going on. I like to say that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Just because you're sure something does not exist or something does not happen, does not mean it's not happening, right? So in our current climate, globally, nationally, geopolitically, even in terms of our relationships, do we think we are going to ever get to that point as human beings where we can live harmoniously but putting into account our genders? Like, are we ever going to get to a point where both men and women are on the same page, right? Because again, a lot is going on around us. Over the last couple of years, you guys have been privy to a lot of things like the Me Too movement and all that stuff, right? But still, again, we're never really addressing the larger figure. It always comes down to men versus women. So do we think that in our current climate right now, we can ever get to a point where we can live harmoniously as the genders? Now remember, we're not assigning blame in this discussion, right? We just want to understand if it is possible. And if it's possible, then how? What are the things that we need to pay attention to? What are some of the things that we need to change? Maybe what are the things that we need to be accountable for, right? But is it possible in this climate with everything that we know, everything that we see, everything that we do, is it possible to achieve a harmonious living between the genders?
I have never had anything make me shatter on the inside and feel broken even as I speak of it. I am going to disagree with you. You see, it's not that we are making it a gender issue. It is actually fact that the men raped and burnt. If you look at it, there's horrible women out there, yes. But in honesty and in fact, if we are going to be honest with ourselves and speak, the bigger percentage is going to be the men. It is not a fight, it is not a war. We've not said, let us just say the men. It actually happens on a daily. Let's try and flip it. The chances, and this is not because as a woman I'm biased, the chances, if it were the women, we flip. The chances of, oh, let's go rape and burn these men, were going to be lower. You understand? I think we need to start having conversations where it's not just about men versus women, but let's accept. And I think that's where the problem comes in. And it's natural that if you tell me this, I'm going to argue my point out. You know, no, you see, and that's how we go back and forth, and we miss the point. The point we are missing is that this thing actually happens. On Friday, I told a few friends that if we choose, oh, let's not have this conversation, we are aiding and encouraging someone to continue doing this thing. You get? And I still believe we just didn't make it a gender conversation, that, oh, we decided it's now a gender issue. It is actually a gendered issue. Chances of me passing that chukubo and see a man, not all men, but I'm not going to take a chance to find out, is it all men? You get? Chances of me walking that chukubo, yeah, and actually be raped and killed are very high than chances of you meeting a woman and she's going to rape and kill you. You get? So I'm just giving situations or scenarios where even researchers, including men themselves, who have gone out there to find out certain things, and we are still saying the world's violence and what is taken by about 85 to 90% by men. It doesn't say that women don't do it. But these things actually happen and they are a threat. But every time we come and say, why are we making it a gender issue? We are missing the point. It is like saying, chances of you meeting a crocodile in the water and survival, these are the chances. Or chances of you coming in contact with maybe a cheetah versus maybe a monkey. You get, eh? So these are some of the things that, let's not miss the point. It is a gendered issue. We are not making it about gender. Because at the end of the day, it speaks for itself. The chances are there. I've not said there are no women who rape men. They're there. But how many you get compared to the chances? Even children with their own fathers and uncles and cousins. And every time, for example, as a woman, if I walk out of the house, I'm even thinking, what should I wear? Because at the end of the day, when we say they went, raped, and burnt, you get, eh? It actually happened. The men did that to the women. Let's not step away from the facts. We are not fighting that, no, let us say it's the men. The men actually did it. So I think if the world were more open to especially realizing that, guys, there is a problem. Let us have a conversation about this problem. It's not a gender war. It is us telling you guys, we are suffocating. We are dying. Our daughters, our sisters, our mothers. It has happened over and over and over that it's no longer about making it about gender. It is a gendered issue in its own. And I think if we put aside all of those things and actually sit and look at the situation as human beings, maybe some men will be quite willing to realize that indeed we have not been doing right by the women. So let's look at it like that. It is actually a war that we did not start. However, if you're victim, you're going to scream and shout as much as you can to try and seek for help. That is how I look at it on my end, not just because I'm a woman, but I think people have lost their mothers, people have lost their daughters, people have lost their sisters. Let's look at the chances here. What are the odds? What is most likely to happen? Because I'm not going to take a chance. And you know, when it happens to you, instead of questioning the guy who did it, they are going to tell me, why weren't you in a long skirt? So even the women who are in the prison, really, was it about what they were wearing? Was it about if their brains are small or not? This was about a human, it's a war, it's at humanity. And it's already gendered. It's not about making it about a war of the genders. You get? So I think let's go back. Let's go back. For me, I feel like it's coming from what we are teaching, what we have been taught. Any woman here will tell you an experience, probably from the years of 5. These women in the prison, what did they do? So I don't think it's about genders. The issue is already gendered in itself.
Okay, so, and I brought up that particular topic because it's one of those extreme situations, right? My thing is, again, what happened? Inexcusable. Inexcusable. You cannot justify that occurrence. No one can sit down and justify what happened there. But bringing it down to just an issue of gender. Again, like I like that you kept saying, there is a larger point that we have to focus on. The gender issues have always been there. Okay, from way back, women have always been, or certainly been considered second-class citizens or less than, right? They weren't allowed to vote in some places. They weren't allowed to have jobs and stuff like that. So yes, there's been aspects of gender that have been, a large area of discussion. But here and now, we are starting to have, and now I'm not talking about the situation in Goma. I actually brought up the situation in Goma to bring attention to actually a larger issue that is happening. But taking away from extreme cases like that, don't we think that it has gotten to a point where we are starting to use this as a weapon against each other, especially when it comes to conversations surrounding gender? Hasn't it gotten to that point now?
Actually, I think it's not about the war, but I think this stems from way back in our traditions, whereby women were marginalized and all that. And then it's not something that they could then sit on a round table and talk about the things that as women go through, right from our families and then out there to our workplaces and all that. In that, even now when they are trying to bring up equality between male and female, still it doesn't work. So now the thing is, if we could try to harmonize our traditional values vis-a-vis the civilized customs and all that, usually that we are copying from the outside world and all that, maybe we can try to merge the gap that is, causing all these issues. Because currently the challenge is, actually I think why the rates are really going so high is the boys, right from their early childhood, they have not been mentored through on what values, how they're supposed to behave and all that. So at the end of the day, they get trapped in the middle of somewhere. So now if we could go back right from school, I remember then there were some shows and talk shows like Straight Talk and other things that were being displayed in newspapers and all other social media. But now there is nothing. Everything has been eroded. So people do as they please. And there is a lot on social media, on TV. There is a lot of content that is misleading people. So now, if you walk down the street and then you are intimidated by these fellow young boys, actually, usually they really don't know even what's happening around them. They don't know the stages they're going through and all that. And still, as women, if you came up and be like, the way she said that you walked down Gabul and you met a crowd of boys and then they were gearing. Even these fellow boda guys, because most of them, I believe they are fathers to some people. They are adults of sound mind. But still, how they behave, it is not appropriate in public. You understand? So I just think that let us look back, sit back, introduce ourselves to the norms and values about humanity. Then I think there we can try to live harmoniously. Thank you.
Yeah, in the beginning we're all humans before anything else, right? But I like the concept of culture that has come up. Have we completely been boxed in? And I'm not talking just about the women, but even the men. Have we been completely boxed in by what we consider our cultural norms and traditions and the things that basically govern how we grow up, especially in the African sense? Because for a lot of these things, the majority of the traditions we have now were not ours. I think we can all agree to that, right? Like modern society has brought modern traditions that were not inherently, and I'm talking in the African perspective, African-centric, right? We grew up in societies where there were defined roles and defined responsibilities that governed who you were as a gentleman or who you were as a lady. And within those boxes, somehow we're able to thrive as a community. And now we've been exposed to this, I don't want to call it new age, but it is necessary. right? It was necessary. We needed that shake in the system. But how much are our cultural beliefs playing a part in actually boxing us up and maybe even escalating these situations a bit more?
Well, thank you. I read the quote sometime by some guy, I'd forgotten, but he said the best test of a man is his treatment to women. In 2012, there was a very popular story. It went around news. This guy was accused of raping a woman, but this woman was 60 years old. The guy is 25. From the guy's side of the story, the guy says he had 3,000 in his pocket, and this lady was singing romantic songs. So he talked to... This was a story that went around. So he talked to the lady, and he was like, if I offer you 2,000, can we go and do something? So they agreed from the guy's story, the 25-year-old man's story. They agreed to go and fuel. Now, they went for the fueling. So when the guy comes, the real husband of the woman is like, this guy has raped my what? My wife. But in actual sense, we don't know what happened. We really don't know what happened. And it's funny, but the guy was released just last year, since 2012. But we really don't know what happened. It is hard to explain how this 25-year-old went and raped a 60-year-old. Actually, himself was not believing because he said, a handsome man like me. You get? So sometimes, you know, culture is very, very wide. And everyone perceives, right now, everyone is driven differently by culture. But since time immemorial, culture has contributed so much on the way ladies or females are treated in our communities. So it gets back to how ready men are to, I don't want to say change because there are people who are stuck to their cultures, but how do you perceive women? How do you look at women? If I look at a woman, do I look at her as a snack or as a workmate? You get? So it gets back to culture or no culture. I think it has to get back to the... I know this can be harmonized because there are things we can't skip the fact that it's actually happening. It is happening. Everyone knows that. Men know it is happening. Women know it is happening. But now, culture has contributed so much. We also know. But it gets back to how ready as a man, how ready am I to maybe... Back then, a man was not... It was very hard to find a man cook. It was very hard to find a man do certain things. Right now, there are men who cook at their home and the wife is not cooking.
Yeah.
So, we don't know whether these men have been driven away from their culture and norms or what, but that's what they feel about their women. So it gets back to what we feel about, when I look at a woman, mulaba muchi. As simple as that. Culture or no culture, by the way.
So, thank you for that, Philip. Back in the day, and again, I'm going back to culture because I want to tie it into the question I'm going to ask. Back in the day, because of, and again, in the African perspective, because of these stratified roles and responsibilities that were assigned to genders, we found that it was easy to not blur what we assumed were the lines of respect. You know, if a man went out, was able to hunt and bring back food at the end of the day, that man was respected. If a woman was able to be submissive to her husband and cook and clean and raise the kids, then that woman was respected. But again, with the ever-changing tides that we've gone through, especially late 20th century and throughout the 21st century, where both men and women have become emboldened in very, very different ways. What does respect between the genders look like right now? Or what should it look like right now?
Real quick, there is a culture that has stayed forever. It has nothing to do with tribe. It has nothing to do with all these other things. This culture for me is what we call the patriarchy. And it has stayed there for a reason, because it has served a specific group for that long. My grandfather used to tell me stories, because the guy was born in 1920s, I don't know. So my grandfather used to say, this thing we are calling the African culture, my grandfather was there. It was a whole other story. When his friends would tell him, why are you educating the girls, he would say, what do you mean? Back in the day, if the boys were fetching firewood, the girls were collecting this, the women were digging, the men were hunting. So basically it had nothing to do, but today's understanding of our culture is actually not our culture. Because he used to say, you think about it, go back to your sayings, or what are they called? The Bisokos and what, and stories. Engero. When you go back to these things that are actually your culture, I remember he asked one of our cousins, a young man, he said, you tell me which one you will hear that demeans a woman. Tell me which one you will hear that demeans a man. If anything, the African culture, the real African culture, the culture that is our culture, women have been treasured as gods, as mothers, as some sort of being, for the fact that they're able to bring life to this world, they're able to nurture. He said, I have never seen anything as absurd. In fact, for him, he said, this is why the world is falling apart. Because we have decided that the patriarchy, because when you have the power, you can choose to flip things. He said, you go back and tell me in whatever language, in whatever region in Africa, where the woman was demonized. Then you come back and tell me that that is your culture. He said, we used to have an arrangement where roles were shared. We have parts that are way older than we can speak of what we call culture today, where women were hunters, where women built the huts, where men also were hunters, where men also built the huts. It's not to say that now the man has now gotten a VJJ, or now a woman has grown a penis. You understand? So what we are even calling a culture today, we don't know our culture. It is foreign cultures that have been brought through one, and by the way, he was a reverend, said one, religion, which came with its agenda, with its motive, with its all of these things. So yes, if you're thinking your culture is 100 years old, chances are you're going to think that's your culture, So I think at the end of the day, he said that's why we had female leaders. That is why among the pharaohs or Egyptians, you find that even the men were wearing wigs, okay, to sort of imitate what they called a god or a goddess. That when they were male leaders, they had to put on wigs to imitate what they... So I even keep telling people, you came from the woman, those are long stories, let's leave that. So I keep saying, this thing is not because we've decided to make it a conversation about gender. See, if I come and constantly, that is why today we still have conversations on race. If I come and choose to discriminate you, that topic will not go away. And I like that when he said that maybe even us as men, if we go back and look and say, but we are human beings, before it is about a patriarchy. when people say, oh, back then when the women used to cook, do you realize that we are having this kind of talk now because the mothers then didn't have the social media, they didn't have the rights. So what they did back then, this message has come from generations and generations of our grandmothers. Because if our mothers didn't think that way, we would not have that idea today. Where you would sit as they plait your hair. There are songs that still exist where there are songs. There's like a song my mom used to sing in Onyakore where the girl was crying for the father, do not get me married off. I have so many things I want to do, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So these conversations will not stop as
so
long as we don't change some of these things.
So back to the point, because yes, it is heavily recognized that African cultures in the past were largely egalitarian. Egalitarian societies were considered societies in which roles and responsibilities were evenly shared between the genders, right? It is only much later that we entered into patriarchal and matriarchal societies, right? However, again, like you've mentioned, the reality of the situation right now is that the patriarchy still exists, yeah? And like you said, history is usually told by the winners, history is written by the winners, history is written by the powerful. We cannot sit down. It is important, again, for people to understand their history. It is important, again, for people to understand the chains that tie them to the people that they have come from and the people they are today. Unfortunately, right now, that information is either very shared in a very small group of people. Like, for example, how many people have the opportunity to talk to her and listen to her to get those stories? How many people even still sit with their grandparents to hear those stories, sit with their mothers? How many mothers and fathers still have time to tell their kids about their history, right? So the reality of the situation right now is we have become a bit detached from who we were or who we are as a people, and we are focusing heavily on the situation as it is now. Now, the situation as it is now is still dire, right? It's still a very dire situation. Otherwise, like you said, we would not be having that conversation. So, with what is happening right now, with the situation as it is right now, what does respect look like between the genders as the situation, with the situation as it is right now?
I'm going to put it this way. Times have actually changed. It's been generations and generations. And I feel like at some point, most people are still stuck in a certain generation. And then there are people who are actually adjusting to the generations that come along. Right now, what I look as respect. One, I don't know if I should just give a scenario.
Scenarios are always good. They're very interesting.
Yes. Now, Rowena mentioned something about when a woman is sexually assaulted. Trust me, 80% of the questions will come from or thoughts. What was she wearing? How about we overlook things like that and respect the fact that they are human? Whether I'm wearing skimpy, whether I'm wearing a gomesi, whether I'm wearing what, because we've heard of 3 months old being raped as well. But how about we look at each other as human beings? Let humanity come first. If we have that at the back of our minds, it will be very easy for us to respect each other and not get to quickly judge each other. Just respect someone for who they are, and that is it. Yeah.
Because you're going to ask the 3 months, oh, was she in a diaper?
Now,
No, I think
another thing, and I'm glad it has come up. Every time we have conversations, and this is everywhere, I think. Every time conversations around gender, because it's a heavy topic. It's like religion. Yeah. You never really know where you're going to end. It's so nuanced and so widespread. But every time I have noticed And I'm glad it hasn't happened here because I've been listening and waiting. And I'm like, it's about to happen. It's about to happen, but it doesn't. And I like that. Why are we demonizing each other? That's the question I've always wanted to ask. Why does it get to a point where we have to demonize each other? And this is not just with the men asking, what was the woman wearing, all that. But I've also seen it has started happening a lot to the men. It's, you're assumed to be a predator even before someone meets you. You're assumed to be this. You're assumed to be that. And again, back to our respect. What is it that is stopping us from seeing the humanity in each other? Why are we automatically jumping to the aspect of demonizing each other? We're all humans to start with. What is killing that humanity between us?
Oh, okay. Well, me, I think that the fact that, first of all, the world is broken, people are broken. People are carrying a lot on their shoulders. They don't know which direction to take, and everyone is lost. Majority of the population in the world, they are lost. And the fact that if you're lost and you really don't know what to hold on to that will keep you in the right direction, you lose out. Now, when it gets to respect for each other, if I personally am carrying load, I would want somewhere where I can dump it. You understand? That's why the situations where you meet someone on the street, you've done nothing, and then someone will just, explode. And you're like, okay, what's happening? So I think the fact that now we don't know who to turn to, if you be like, let me follow the religious way, the different sects, you understand? Then you're like, okay, should I be this? Should I be that? Should be that, And if you don't have the core values within you, your principles as a person, and that comes from within, how you've been brought up, that brings in the culture and traditions, then you're lost. That's when you jump from one thing to another. You do nothing that you hold on to. So I think the fact that you don't know who you are, then you have no respect for anyone whatsoever, anything. Anyone can drag you off your feet and you're like, you know what? Boom, we are doing this, we are doing that, we are jumping off the bridge. And you think that is the right thing to do, and that's when you know that, hey, shit, this was doom, So that's why I personally, I believe that if we get down, first, we can't say that right now we can go back and scratch our culture, values, and traditions right from the start and bring it on board. That will be devastating. Currently, we have to adaptability. So that means we have to harmonize then and now so that we can move forward. So now, people with content, with literature of who we are, who we were then, they should come on board. Take us step by step, All generations, I think it dates back to some generations back before we were born. Also, some people, you find them when they are lost. Actually, you meet someone you think that you can respect now. For example,
2K for the fueling.
thank you. I mean, at 60, for God's sake, what was she looking for?
She wanted 2K for the fueling.
So basically, everyone is broken. We need a sense of direction. We need someone to guide us through. We need to amalgamate everything all together so that we can live in harmony. We can live in peace, through our leaders, through our religion. Both religious and political leaders, and then family traditions.
Yeah.
Right now, kids run out of the street and you're like, okay, what are you doing here? And then they literally don't even know why they're out there, but they're just out there, And then also this thing to be like, if someone, for example, someone was raped, sometimes also men are raped, not so. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, sometimes we poke. Someone, I think someone said, you poke the anus of... yeah, of that. Yeah, so once you poke it, of course, the reaction, the repercussions that come thereafter. So right now, then the way back then, ladies were respected the way they dressed and all that. But now, this girl would have this big, and then maybe a see-through legging and she's all over the place and all that, Even if we are trying to adapt, let us try to conserve and live, So I think that is it. Sometimes you really push someone to doing something. and
Took you for the fueling.
Yes, and then also these other things like now, for example, we have a lot of substances on market, people sniffing a lot, taking this ABCD, and they are under the influence. So also that I think we need to look through it, how best can it be curbed so that we can erode it, like just do away with it, so that everyone is back on track, and maybe, you never know, things can get back in place.
Wow, that insight I hadn't thought about. We really are a broken generation. We'll talk about that one. Let Rowena first speak.
I first of all want to applaud you for this topic. You see, if we are willing to have conversations on the hard things, for me that means there is progress. It means someone is willing to talk about it because we've identified there is a what? A problem. Because every time you avoid things, you're not solving the problem, it's becoming a monster. And that is why we are here today discussing this topic. You know why? Because for so long, and that will bring me back to your answer, why are we demonizing each other? For so long, people said, if I talk about it, I am going to be belittled. If I talk about it, to the point, now let me answer you, to the point where they said you do not have a voice. And here's why women are going crazy now. Because if for so long you have been told that you don't have a voice, and someone finds a way of giving you the voice, that's why I told you this conversation is not from us. It has come from our grandmothers, of their grandmothers, of their grandmothers. We've had a topic about hairstyles that communicated. These women were told they don't have voices. But every chance they got with their daughters, in terms of storytelling, in terms of songs, in terms of... So you see now the voices you're hearing, the roaring you're hearing, is generations.
Okay, so we are listening to generational roaring right now, right? Mm-hmm. Someone pointed out, though, and this is also something that we have not examined. And again, it's a difficult conversation to have because currently we are in a heavily feminine movement, which that's a good thing because, like you said, for generations, women have been silenced. The fear, and that was a discussion I was having with a gentleman and a lady, was their fear is that what was happening previously with the patriarchy is starting to happen in this day and age, is that men's voices are also being silenced and hushed, right? Because you've had people jokingly say, what about men's rights and this? It sounds like a joke, right? But it has gotten to a point where a man right now cannot say certain things, and I'm not excusing some behavior, but it has gotten to a point where previously how women were gagged is the way men are being gagged right now. Like you can't sit somewhere and just have an open conversation. So I love the topic of, roaring voices from generations, but aren't we at a risk of repeating this cycle?
No, but you see, that is what is bound to happen. And then we'll have another couple of thousand years trying to reverse that too. And that is why I was explaining it, that you see, if for so long, and this is the problem with patriarchy, and I will tell you why men will come out and say this is not good, because if even the good guys, even for the good guys, this patriarchy is working in their favor. You understand? But you see, if, for example, I have been in charge of something, and then I see a threat of my power, you get, I am going to have a problem with it. And that's just human nature. It's not just even in gender, it's in politics of any form. It's in any kind of environment where someone is working, you come, you have the skill, someone is going to be like, excuse me. So what is wrong? We've even had the same issue about age. These young people, these old people, because someone is threatening someone.
Yeah. They took
You
it
see?
for the fueling.
The need of power. Eh? And that's where our challenge is. The need of power. Patriarchy came with need of power. So, yes, at some point, and that's why I like that we all came back to, how about we look into humanity? Because we've had generations and generations of people who are better than us today. You get? Not in a sense of, I'm trying to have control. Because patriarchy, in all ways, let's admit it, is favoring the men. So naturally, the women who feel oppressed, even if it were you, at work, your boss is, your boss, then you people start complaining. Before you know it, it's a whole issue. You understand? Even things about age. You're hearing people today saying, you guys, we have a new form of doing things. Old people should relax. That's just how the world works. If I have been victimized for years, and that's why I say sometimes, if you're not the one in power, you will not know the need to keep the power. If you're not the one who's victim, you will not know what the victim feels. Hence, the back and forth. The back and forth. And yes, expect it, and it's going to probably keep happening, and then it will be reversed at some point. You know, like that. That's how the world works. We shall not be here when we are having organizations for men's rights. You understand? Because, see, if, for example, even the movies we watch, the guy goes and avenges all his people that were killed. But you know what he's going to do? He's going to do the same thing that was done to his people, to these people. And then these people are also going to cry, you killed my father. He says, yes, because
Prepare
even
to
me,
die.
you killed my father. You get what I'm trying to say? So the more we come out and speak, and this raw, the generation raw, it's going to reach with anger. Have you ever been in a situation where, and that's why you see all these movies, they show it, where you have been suffering for years, and you fight and you fight and you fight your way up? Chances are you're not going to allow the person who was making you voiceless, taking away your voice, get the opportunity also to have a voice. Because you're saying, if we give this person a voice, they are going to fail the agenda. And that's what also patriarchy did. That if we give this woman a voice, she's going to fail the agenda. Especially now. That is why you see we are making it about, hey, these women of today, our mothers, your mothers are the reason we are talking. Because they could not talk, they talked to us in songs. They talked to us in storytelling. They talked to us, they would even, do you know that there is an art in keeping a man where you want him? Some of you say, you think she's doing it because that's what women should do. She knows that if I do it, and half the time, men make decisions that the woman wanted you to make. But she's going to sit there, kneel down, clean your feet. Because what you want, we know it. You want power. There is an art of seduction. For centuries and centuries, you know why?
But to tell
We know where the weakness is. So these women, when you say our mothers used to do these things for our fathers, they knew what they were doing. And where we are now, it is those women's voices. Even to date, they will tell you, you leave him, don't quarrel. When you quarrel, then he will make it feel like you're the problem. So what you do, you just cook him his Camille, what, then you tell him, by the way, the other thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So as much as we are, and then it will, in future, and that's where we're heading, you can even see it now. There are also men who have now learned the art where your guy has pampered you to the heavens and back.
Yeah.
You can't even say no guy in it. So this is where we are. It is just a matter of who is in power at the moment.
Okay.
And if you're on the oppressor's side and the oppressed. So the oppressor is saying, I still need to oppress. The oppressed is saying, what are you saying? I also want to oppress.
So what I'm getting from this today is, man, I didn't think it would get to that point. Regardless of whether we want it or not, we're in a vicious cycle that is going to keep going until one of us just realizes, you know what, let's wipe out an entire portion of something and and maybe try to live in peace. Again, much like religion and politics as well, I feel like there are three topics that are really, really so broad that covering them will take a lifetime: politics, religion, and gender-based issues. What I don't even think I have anything to add to that, because the harsh realization, and yes, the harsh realization that a lot of what we're going through is coming from us being a society that really, it's not that we don't have core values, it's just that somehow we don't believe in them as much, and therefore we're like the wind. You know that saying, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything, right? So we go with what's famous, what's popular, what's trending at that point. And that even affects core aspects of our lives, like what we believe in, how we pursue people, and how we pursue the things that we do. But also the realization that power is infinite. It's definite, it's infinite. And whoever has the power will always try to keep that power. And because as long as, aspects of power still exist, then I think these issues are going to be issues we're going to discuss for generations and generations to come. Maybe just reversed, right? Maybe in 500 years, it's now going to be the men saying, but no, right? Yeah, so I think the best we can do is make the best of what we have now, live our lives to the fullest now, respect our humanity now. We cannot control the past, we can't dictate the future, but we can thrive in the moment. So I think let's just be present in everything that we're doing, respect each other, accord each other the humanity that we all deserve. And man, let's be happy. Guys, regardless of everything, I think let's love each other, let's be happy, right? So in the interest of time, I'm going to allow me to cut us here, but we can have after the talk track where the conversation continues after the mic and the cameras have been shut down. But it's been a pleasure to have you all today. As usual, my name is Roy. I've been the host for the evening. We'll see you all next Sunday. We're at Plot 8B Gabula Road. I would like to say we don't own the rights to the music, but the conversation has been intense. There was no music. The conversation has been intense. There was no music. The Talk Track is an independent production of the Courage Junkies, sound mixed, produced, edited by Morris, who is behind the camera. One day he'll flip the camera, you'll see him. He'll become the oppressed. But that being said, thank you all for being here. We'll see you all next Sunday. Check us out on our socials at TalkTrack UG on YouTube. And until next Sunday, have a lovely week. Miss people so that when you come back on Sunday, you say, I missed you. Don't just sit there and pretend like you've been with each other for the whole week. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next Sunday. Peace out.